Hello and welcome to the Comic Cave. I'm Ramsey, aka Captain Away, and today I'm looking at the 2011 to 2015 series of Supergirl, part of DC's The New 52. I've covered Supergirl's history before on the blog, but basically it breaks down like this. Kara Zor-El, Superman's cousin from Argo City on Krypton, originally came down to Earth in the 60s during the Silver Age of comics. Eventually, DC decided the Superman family was too big, and Kara, along with about 100 other characters, was killed off in Crisis on Infinite Earths. She was eventually brought back by writer Jeff Loeb for his Superman-Batman series, and her history was essentially rebooted into this new character. I reviewed the Supergirl title from that period last year, and I found it mostly to be an excuse to present Kara as underage eye candy for teenage boys until writer Sterling Gates and artist Jamal Eagle took over and proved for possibly the first time that a Supergirl comic could actually be good. They did this by finally giving the character some respect. They gave her some booty shorts to wear under a slightly longer skirt, and finally gave her personality beyond just generic teenage angst. They continued writing the character almost straight up to the New 52 reboot. So does this series continue the respect and character development given to her by Gates and Eagle? Let's find out and take this away. This series opens with meteors falling to Earth, meaning that for the third time we are starting at zero with Kara Zor-El. Once again, all of Supergirl's past history is being erased and she is becoming again the one and only Supergirl. This comic is starting at the 5-year mark that defines the New 52. That is to say, all New 52 continuity for all superheroes is supposed to have happened within the past 5 years by the start of the New 52. Kara's pod doesn't slow down once inside Earth's atmosphere, but instead it speeds up, and so impossibly it punches right through the Earth's crust and drives straight through the mantle until it pops out in Russia. Which, that's not... whatever. The pod opens, Kara emerges, and we get our first look at what is going to be the New 52 Supergirl costume. Yep, I hate it. I don't love that DC always felt the need before this to put Supergirl in a miniskirt, but while I never particularly loved her outfits before, I really hate this one. Why bother with all the work of drawing lots of upskirts when you can just cut to the chase and have permanent panty shots? And really, no pants at all? So it's not even a Superman-style underwear on the outside thing, it's just her underwear. And what's with those boots with the knee windows? Who thought that was a good idea? To make matters worse, the first volume of the collected edition includes some other costume designs for Kara, including this one that is actually a full-body outfit and would have been much better, with a recolor, obviously. Instead, they went with long-sleeve shirt tucked into granny panties with knee window go-go boots? What the hell, DC? To make things still worse, they try to justify this horrible outfit by saying it's her graduation outfit. What? Yeah, Ramsey don't think so. On what planet would you graduate pantsless? Especially since Superman wears this. Does that mean that's his graduation outfit? So in this supposedly advanced civilization of Krypton, men graduate wearing full body clothes and women graduate looking like half-dressed porn stars? One thing I do kind of like is that Kara doesn't speak English, only Kryptonian, which makes perfect sense. Why would she speak English? She has no memory of getting here. As far as she knows, she went to sleep on Krypton and woke up on Earth. One thing I don't like is Kara is back to early Jeff Loeb days of having a singular personality trait, rage. Combine these two things, and most of the first part of this series is just her lashing out at things. First, there's some mercenaries who come to collect her and the crashed alien artifacts. Next, that's Superman, who does speak Kryptonian, but Kara isn't really willing to buy as being the same person as her baby cousin. Then that's Simon Tycho, a super wealthy tech genius and all-around nasty man. I think Tycho was supposed to be a Lex Luthor for Kara, but I'm not sure trying to make a younger update of an existing villain is the best idea, because it means you're treating Kara like a younger update of Superman, and she should really be so much more than that. Tycho's main interest is in weaponizing Kryptonians, their abilities, and their technology, which is why he has Kara's pod, and he also wants to own Kara. He leads Kara to his satellite where he lives, and puts her to the test in various combat situations, including fighting this weird thing called the Brain. Kara breaks free, but she can't go near her pod now because of kryptonite, even though she emerged from her pod just a little bit ago on Earth with no ill effects. Not sure I really follow that logic, but whatever. In a fit of rage at Tycho's schemes, she blows up the satellite. Everyone escapes except Tycho, who in his arrogance thought he could stop the core meltdown. He doesn't die though somehow, but instead gets grafted onto the body of the Brain. Before being blown up, Tycho had graciously shown to her the point of origin of her capsule, so Kara figures screw Earth and flies off into space to find where she comes from. All she finds is a dead city floating in space around a blue giant. Here she meets the first of several world killers. The world killers are basically genetically engineered monsters from Krypton that were designed to, well, destroy worlds. There are 4, though they inform Kara of a possible 5th, and they decide they want to test Kara. So they close off New York for a big battle, but they idiotically taunt Kara with their only weakness, and so she uses that against them. The fight ends quickly, but New Yorkers aren't as big as Metropolisians, on heroes dressed in blue with big S's on their chests. So they try to arrest Kara. Then this person shows up, even though they are shown just before the fight being on Liberty Island. And now they seem to be in the middle of Long Island, and during the fight there was a big bubble around the city to keep people out, so there's really no way that she could be here right now. But whatever, who needs details? This person is Siobhan Smythe, better known as the Silver Banshee. She hears a couple of words of Kryptonian and is magically able to speak it. Literally magically. It's literally part of the magical curse of the Silver Banshee. I'm sure it's more than just plot convenience. Despite feeling like that's a bit of a cheat, SB is one of the few things I feel this series really does right. Siobhan is a strong and fiercely independent woman, and I love seeing boring B-list villains get retooled to be anti-heroes. Banshee showed up in the previous series as an enemy of Supergirl for one of the better stories there, but I actually like this one even better. Getting to see Siobhan try and fight her curse and be a good person and a friend to Supergirl is definitely a good place to try and start this comic. In this version, Siobhan is fighting against her father, the Black Banshee, who is the true curse of the family, and Supergirl attempts to help out. This gives us a glimpse into Supergirl's past, when Daddy Banshee tries to consume Supergirl. This also gives us a glimpse at this Kryptonian battle armor, which again would have been a much better suit for Kara. Why, DC? Why? It also gives us a new character when we discover Siobhan's brother Tommy is alive and well inside of Pops despite having been consumed by him years ago. There's a lot of build up towards Kara and Tommy getting together, but nothing ever comes of it. Tommy pretty much stops being a character almost immediately, but even beyond that, they just never really give Kara any time to breathe, so she basically gets no personal life whatsoever in this comic. She and Tommy do go on a bit of a date right after this, which does lead to this pretty great moment of Kara stealing pizza, but this will basically be the last time we see Kara try out a civilian identity until pretty much the end of the comic, and even this gets interrupted by one of Tycho's goons. Wait, how'd she get into her Supergirl outfit? There's no way she was hiding it under that tank top. Here's the last page of her in civilian clothes, and then here's the next page and she's in her superhero outfit. Did she fly home and change, then fly back while her friend was being attacked? I know she's fast, but that seems kinda risky. After this, we learn that Kara's dad, Zor-El, planned for a piece of her space pod to break off and land in the ocean to set up a fortress of solitude for her. She calls this place Sanctuary. Unfortunately, Tycho has invaded her she-shed already, but Sanctuary has an interactive AI that traps Tycho in suspended animation inside some crystal. The series then forgets about him completely, and actually about a dozen or so issues later, Kara will be forced to destroy Sanctuary, and still later we will learn that, yeah, Tycho was still down there when that happened. Oh well, he was a pretty lame villain anyway. The destruction is due to a brief period where Kara was hanging out with Power Girl, who is just an alternate timeline version of Kara. And Kryptonians apparently hate clones. They hate clones so much that Sanctuary's AI would rather kill both Kara and PG rather than suffer a clone to live. You know, between this and the whole graduation outfit thing, I'm beginning to think Kryptonians weren't so enlightened after all. After they blow up Sanctuary, Kara also cuts ties with Siobhan, who gets extremely angry and yells at her for pretty much no reason. She even wah-wahs Kara's problems, even though, like, Kara has some pretty legit problems. Literally, her entire species is dead, other than her cousin. Her homeworld blew the F up. Her new home just tried to kill her, and she was forced to blow it the F up. And, oh yeah, she's dying of kryptonite poisoning. This is due to a crossover event called Hell on Earth. I love that name, by the way. A Kryptonian named Hell had come to Earth to try and restore Krypton. Kara fell in love with him, because obviously a dude named Hell is not gonna be bad news, right? Well, she didn't speak English at the time, so give her a break, I guess. Hell, plot conveniences a way for Kara to understand languages before trying to destroy the solar system in order to restore Krypton. Finally realizing he is a bad guy, Kara stabs him in the heart with a shard of kryptonite, poisoning herself in the process. Dying, and with everything even remotely interesting about the series so far, either literally or figuratively up in flames, Kara steals a space bike and heads out into outer space. There she comes across a civilization basically comprised of nanomachines, and the cyborg Superman. I love Cyborg appearing here. Longtime superfans will recognize him as a character that appeared during the Death and Return of Superman stories as one of the possible real Supermans. He instead turned out to be a human named Hank Henshaw, who merged with some Kryptonian technology and became the villain of the piece. This Cyborg Superman is not Hank, but instead Zor-El. Yeah, let that sink in. Remember earlier when Kara flew out to that dead chunk of city floating around a blue sun? Yeah, that was Argo City, her home city. Brainiac, the big Superman villain, had at one point come to Krypton and taken the city Kandor, shrunk it down and bottled it, and saved it as a museum piece before Krypton died. Zor-El had used some of the leftover Brainiac technology in the hopes of saving Argo City, ripping it out into space away from Krypton while the planet exploded. The plan worked, to an extent, but Zor-El didn't really understand the technology, and as it began to fail, he sent out a distress signal. Brainiac answered to the distress signal, and finding Zor-El half dead, the last survivor of Argo City, decides to convert him into this cyborg Superman, making him the herald of Brainiac. Sai doesn't remember who he is though, so he wants to take Kara's body so he can reform his own. Since she's dying anyway, he figures she'll be cool with this. Instead, her reaction is probably my favorite moment in a Supergirl comic so far. "I couldn't hear you through all the creepiness coming out of your mouth." That is the best. Yeah, you can probably tell this story from Volume 4 is my favorite in the series. The whole of Volume 4 is pretty good, as it also contains part of the crossover with the Krypton Return story from the Superman titles, which sees Superman, Superboy, and Supergirl all go back into Krypton's past, which I find very cool. We only get about half that story though, so I'll probably review the collection that has the whole story sometime later. From here they decide to up Kara's one personality trait to maximum overdrive, when she becomes a member of the rage-fueled Red Lantern Corps. We're briefly reminded her and the Silver Banshee used to be friends when they fight, until SB tricks Kara off planet. She runs across the Red Lanterns, who help her to learn to control her rage, and teach her that being a Red Lantern is permanent, as the ring apparently has a direct attachment to the heart. Also, you couldn't give her a new outfit for this? You just recolored the old outfit and changed the logo? Pfft, total ripoff. I demand some free DLC. This portion of this series is almost impossible to read in the Supergirl collections, because basically everything requires knowledge of what is going on in the broader New 52 universe. Between every issue of Supergirl collected here is around a half dozen other comics, whether they be Superman, Action Comics, Green Lantern, Red Lantern, or whatever else, full of events that directly tie into what is happening to Kara and move the plot along. The short and skinny of it is that before long, Guy Gardner and his terrible mustache kick Kara out of the Corps and she returns bitterly to Earth. Here she runs across the Fifth World Killer. Bet you forgot about those guys, huh? This is pretty much the last of the early foreshadowing from the series to be taken care of, but at least they do bring it around again. This Fifth World Killer is a suit of armor that attaches to Red Lantern Supergirl, and she falls into the sun in order to destroy it, which also conveniently frees her from her Red Lantern obligations. Neato. The final arc involves Kara joining a special academy called Crucible. Obviously a place called Crucible is not gonna be bad news, right? The supposed goal of this academy is to train superpowered people to be guardians of their homeworlds, so Kara hangs out with the New 52 versions of Maxima and Captain Comet. Maxima is an old Superman villain, well, more like nuisance. She was basically created to show up and get in the way while she demanded Superman marry her, because he was the only man in the universe she deemed worthy enough of being her mate. It was a pretty disgusting character, and this Maxima makes basically a direct call back to it by explaining how her parents are only interested in her getting married. While they never directly state it, it's heavily implied that this one is a lesbian, now in love more with Supergirl than Superman, and she heavily resents her parents' obsession with her getting married. That's actually an awesome turnaround for the character, so props to this creative team for actually trying to create some depth with a female character, some 30-odd issues into the series. Captain Comet is an old superhero that's a direct and blatant ripoff of Superman, even being from Kansas and having parents named John and Martha. He is not, as I originally thought, a new version of Comet, the superhero version of Kara's horse that appeared during the Peter David Supergirl run. That's good because that relation was kinda icky, and they do give these characters a bit of a relationship, solidified in the Future's End tie-in where Kara has been converted into a cyborg Supergirl by dear old dad. On literally the last page of the series, Kara loses her powers for absolutely no reason whatsoever, other than, I guess, to further justify canceling the series, which DC was going to do anyways, along with dozens of other titles. So with that, let's get to the breakdown. I really like that this series did a lot of foreshadowing of later storylines, like all the build-up to Cyborg Superman and the rival of the Fifth World Killer. I also like the idea of Sanctuary and Kara's friendship with Sivan. Even Crucible seemed like somewhat of a cool idea, and if it had been there almost straight from the beginning, that could have really helped Kara develop a unique dynamic and storyline for her character. I also like that the crossovers with the main Superman title felt less forced than they did over in the Bat Family titles, probably a sign of a much tighter team pre-planning their stories. So overall, there was a lot of great ideas and intentions with this series. It's a real shame that they didn't have the time or foresight to do much with all of it. We get almost no time at all of Kara just being Kara, but instead it's Supergirl rushing from one disaster to another with almost no pause, leaving no time for any character development or reason for us to care. And that's why I'm giving this series a recommendation level of medium. It's definitely not a bad series, and if you really want to read a Supergirl comic, you could easily do worse. But it's still not great, and if female empowerment is what you're looking for, definitely look somewhere else. Oh, and don't even get me started about this series' version of Lobo, cause what? That's supposed to be Lobo? Yeah. No. Thanks everybody for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this overview of the New 52 Supergirl comic. This is actually the first week I'm trying out new things like background music and the new recommendation levels, so if you've seen my older videos, let me know what you think of the changes. That's all for now, and I hope to see you next time right here in the Comic Cave.